Today, we're going to talk about whether an iPad Pro can be a replacement for a laptop if you're a YouTube creator. Recently, my wife and I went out on a little trip to San Diego, and I had brought both the iPad Pro and my MacBook with me as two different content creating tools. The MacBook I brought for this YouTube channel, and the iPad Pro I brought along with me to play around with for work. We got a whole bunch of these at work, and I wanted to test out some of the kind of graphic design capabilities of some of these, especially with the new pen. But while I was out there, something happened where I was on the flight, and it got to that point in the flight where you have to shut everything down if you're using a laptop because you're descending and you're about to land. And it had me thinking that, you know what? All the people with laptops had to stop working, where people with iPads could keep working, and anyone on their phone can keep, watching videos on that Southwest flight or doing whatever they were doing. Same thing when you're boarding the flight. As soon as you sit down, you can start working on an iPad, and you don't ever have to shut it off during the takeoff or taxiing process because of the FAA rules. If it's a laptop, even if it's a similarly sized laptop with similar specs, you can't use this, but you can use this. So that got me thinking about, can I use the iPad as a laptop replacement for me in terms of my workflow for this channel? Now, some of my goals and kind of the things that I'm looking for in terms of the device that I would use to create content for this channel is that it has to have really good battery life. Now, I've had a variety of different laptops over the years, and what just absolutely is terrible in my mind is when you're either running out of battery in the middle of a flight, or even if you're just sitting in a chair trying to edit a video, and then all of a sudden your battery life dies, and so you have to go get the power plug or plug in, or move from where you are to get closer to somewhere where you can plug in. That's really just disruptive. And so I really want something with really long battery life. The MacBook that gives me that. The iPad Pro definitely gives me that as well. So that's an easy one right there in terms of things that I'm looking for. But I'm also looking for, and this kind of goes with that similar vein with the epic battery life, is I want something really portable. So whether I'm working on an airplane, working in a chair, working at my in-laws' house or at a hotel, I want something to be really portable and not something where I have to set up a mouse, a power brick, get like a work area cleared off for me. We live in a small apartment, so I got to get my work done wherever I can get it done. I also need the machine to be reasonably fast. Now, I don't need the most powerful machine. After all, I normally edit on a MacBook that's a couple years old now. But I also need to be able to edit 4K video, and it needs to be like a workable experience. And so I need it to be fast. It doesn't have to be the most blazing fast, but I need it to be reasonably fast. And especially when I'm rendering out that video footage, I want it to be a relatively quick process so I don't have to wait hours after I've edited the video for it to render before I can then upload it, which is also a time-consuming process. And kind of the last objective in terms of whether this thing can really replace my laptop is, can I just do it with this one device? I like when I'm going traveling, whether I'm going traveling for work or for family reasons, I don't want to have to bring this and a laptop with me, because that would kind of defeat the purpose. If I'm bringing a laptop, I'm just going to use a laptop. So the real test is whether I can use this. And overall, for the most part, I was able to live with just the iPad with a couple of caveats. So I wasn't completely able to do the kind of one and only one device kind of objective or kind of question that I was looking to answer. And the reason why I would want to switch to the iPad is it's got a little bit more battery life than my MacBook seems to have. And I'm doing a lot of capturing, most of my run footage capturing on this channel with this Insta360 One X camera. And the way that this works is it's a 360 camera and it captures everything around you all at once. And when you're using that footage to put it into like a standard 1080 video, after you film it, you have to then go decide where the camera, or at least where your 1080 frame is going to be looking at. And one of the best ways to do that is with the Insta360 One X app. Or I think it's the Insta360 app, because you can use multiple cameras, not just the One X, with that same app. And while there is an Insta360 Studio app for the laptop, a lot of times the easiest way to be able to reframe that footage in a way that's much more fluid is with using the app, especially when you're using the viewfinder functionality of it, where you basically use the gyroscopes that are within your iPad or within the phone, and as you're watching the footage, you can control how much you're zooming in, where the camera is looking, and control panning, movements, zoom in and zoom out really easily, really intuitively with just moving the phone or device around. So that's really helpful, something that you can do on the apps that are mobile, but not on the studio app that's on the laptop. So that's one thing that I thought would help in moving to just an iPad Pro only workflow. And so here's my total workflow in terms of how that goes, just to get into it. So first, I'll go for a run. I'll capture all the footage with the Insta360 One X. Then I have to go to either the app or the Insta360 Studio and frame all the footage. So it's an extra time-consuming process, but that's where a lot of the real work is done. So I'm choosing then where I'm looking, what I'm looking at of all the 360 footage that I've captured. From there, then I have to edit the actual video, and I'll edit the video on the iPad Pro, or I did at least for the last 7 videos that I made for this channel, using Luma Fusion, which is a paid app, but it's relatively cheap. I think it was $20. So compare that to the cost of Final Cut, or it's cheaper than even a 1-month subscription to Adobe Premiere Pro. So it's not as fully featured as those 2 pieces of software, but in terms of the kind of editing that I do for this channel, it does everything that I need. Now, I shoot my Insta360 footage in log mode, and when I use it with Final Cut, I apply one of the Insta360 LUTs to it. When you're using it with the app knows that the footage coming in is shot in log, and it automatically applies that same LUT to it. So you don't even have to go through that step. So I didn't have to play around with the LUTs, at least not in Luma Fusion. But I was able to use the Luma Fusion app to do all the nonlinear editing that I needed to, played around with speeds, mixing and ducking audio to the extent that I needed to do that, boosting audio levels in post, which is critically important when you're dealing with different audio sources like a camera like this versus the audio coming off of the Insta360 One X. So I was able to do everything that I needed to do, apply titles, captions, all that kind of thing. Everything that I needed to do, I was able to do in Luma Fusion. Some of it wasn't as easy or intuitive, but I was able to get it all done. Once I've edited the video, then I also make a thumbnail, and for that, I did that also on the iPad Pro using the app Photoshop Mix, which let me do the basic thumbnailing that I do, which is usually I take a screenshot from the video that I've edited, and then I'll put text on top of it. And then sometimes I'll cut out either myself or something else in the video and place that on top. So I'll have like one layer, which is the background image, another layer, which is the text, and then a third layer, which is the cutout of me. And I was able to do that relatively easily in Photoshop Mix. So that was a nice free piece of software that I was able to use to make my thumbnails. And that was a relatively good option. I didn't have too many problems with that. So that worked out relatively well. From there, that's when it starts to get like really annoying. To upload a video from an iPad to your YouTube channel, you have to go to the YouTube app, and you can upload the video there. And then you want to make sure you set it to private if you're a scheduled uploader kind of person, and I am, at least for the most part. And so that's how I would upload it there. Then once it's uploaded, then I can, when you're uploading it, you can add a title, you can add a description, and that's pretty much about it. Once it's uploaded, then you have to go to the YouTube Studio app, which is a separate app, and there go into the video you've already uploaded, and then you can do things like add tags. You can't do that in just the regular YouTube app when you upload. You could change monetization settings, which is something you also can't do in the regular YouTube app when you're uploading. You can change thumbnails and upload a thumbnail that you've made yourself. Again, something that you should be able to do in the same place that you're uploading the video, but for whatever reason you can't. And you can change your upload scheduling time. So you could schedule to upload. I usually try to do mine for 7:30 in the morning, at least during the week, in Central Standard Time in Chicago time. So those are all things that you have to do, kind of 2 places you have to hop around for. It's super annoying. I don't understand why you need to do that. but that's something you need to do. The other thing that's super annoying about uploading YouTube videos from an iPad is if you've gone to the trouble of having some upload defaults like text, I have my like Strava, Instagram links, some attributions, and some kind of default language for the charity run of the week, that kind of thing, and also some default tags that I want to appear in every video. All that stuff I've set up so that way anytime I upload a video, it's kind of pre-populated in the description, and then I just have to customize stuff for whatever that video is about. That doesn't show up in any of the videos that you've uploaded from an iPad or from a mobile device. So that's super annoying. So I had to go and copy and paste it from an old video, or I have it saved somewhere else where I can just copy and paste it. It's an extra step that's not terribly cumbersome, but I don't understand why. I've already made those upload defaults. Why doesn't it just push across all the different platforms that I can upload from? A little bit annoying. But that's ultimately, all that aside, that's the overall workflow. So you can technically do it all from just the iPad Pro. But there's a really big exception to that, and a place where then the MacBook really comes into play, and you need to start using that. And for me, that pinch point is in footage from a camera like the one that you're looking at me talking to you at now. And that's the Sony a6300. So Sony camera files, for whatever reason, I think it has to do with a folder structure reason, they don't play nice with the iPad. I can get the camera footage onto an iPad just fine, but if I take the memory card and put it into a USB-C card reader, which the iPad Pro has a USB-C port, and if you put it into a USB-C card reader, it will show you the photographs that are on there, but it won't show you the videos that are on there. And I think it has to do with the way that the card readers work. On the iPad, it's looking for a DCIM folder, and whatever's in there is what it brings forward. And I also think it's looking for specific file prefixes as well, so like img underscore. And so video files just don't show up. No matter what I've done, I've tried directly connecting the camera to the iPad. I've tried shooting in different file formats. It's not a file format issue because the files work just fine. It's just that you can't read a memory card or read directly from the camera onto your iPad Pro. To be able to do it, you're going to have to look at getting a laptop as an intermediary, which is really, really unfortunate. And so what I did was I would then take the memory card from the camera, download them to my MacBook, and then connect the iPad Pro to my MacBook with the USB-C to USB-C cable, and then use iTunes to import the footage into LumaFusion. And then in LumaFusion, you have to go to a specific place to then import the imported videos to your project file. So again, not terribly annoying, not terribly time consuming, but it's cumbersome. And it's something that if I were, let's say I were to go on my next work trip and only bring an iPad Pro, I would not have a way of getting footage from a camera like the a6300 that you're looking at now onto this. Now, I know that there's other things that you could do, other workarounds. The Everyday Dad talked about his workaround, which he uses, which is to have a RAV Power SD card reader to then have the files transmitted wirelessly to the iPad, and it works for him. But I just, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me to do it that way. I don't really want to have to be able to do that way, because the video files that come out of the a6300 that I shoot are in the matter of gigs, and just trying to transmit 3 gigabyte file size videos from a wireless SD card reader to an iPad just doesn't sound like a good time to me. I've even tried using the Play Mobile app, the Sony app, which I can use to transmit wirelessly via Wi-Fi photos from the a6300 to like my phone, for example. Like if I'm shooting photos and I want to quickly be able to share those, I could do that. That app disappeared from the App Store, so I can't download it to the iPad Pro anymore. But I did the whatever new version that they have, that doesn't have the ability to communicate with this camera. And when I even want to try to use the phone, maybe I could then use Wi-Fi with the app on my phone to get the videos off the camera and then airdrop them to myself from my phone to my iPad. But that doesn't work either, because you can download photos off of the phone, but you can't download videos, at least not that I know of. In either event, that's double the Wi-Fi transfer, going Wi-Fi to phone and then phone to iPad. That just seemed like a mess. So that was ultimately the ultimate stumbling block for me, is being able to get video files off a camera like the Sony a6300 to the iPad. So I don't think that I'm going to be using the iPad Pro as my only content creation tool. I think I'm going to stick with the MacBook and use that, although I do really like editing videos on the iPad Pro. I just prefer editing videos on the MacBook a little bit more. I enjoy using Final Cut a little bit more, especially for the kinds of videos that I make. Because while LumaFusion does a lot of great things in the space that it has, and it's pretty intuitive if you're a non-linear video editor, there's a couple of things that it doesn't do for me all that well that I have a problem with. And the main thing is it's not as precise as I'd like it to be. And I don't use a mouse when I edit most of the videos for this channel because I'm doing it on a MacBook. I'm just using the regular trackpad. But I've even used the pencil to try and aid in getting a little bit more precision, but I just don't feel like the precision is there when you're using an iPad as the interface. In fact, a lot of times when I use the pencil, I find it to be less precise because the interface was designed for a finger. And then when you add the pencil to it, it doesn't make it any more or less precise to me. I have a lot of trouble with if I want to move things over by a frame or a couple of frames at a time. And for the kind of video footage that I shoot, which is action footage, I use the slip or the slide tool. I never remember which term it is. And so I might need to kind of keep maybe it's a 4.5 second clip, but it starts at a point where I might want to move it over in the timeline just a little bit, so that way my foot strikes kind of match up with the music a little bit better, or just a range of motion in that clip. I want it to be from a certain starting and end point. To be able to move that around is pretty annoying in LumaFusion. It requires a couple double taps and then moving around, and it's not very precise when you do that either. And so I have had a hard time with that. And then trimming off the beginnings and ends, that's not that precise for me as well. I would try to give it a fair shake, but it's workable, but not my favorite. I think that if the data transfer issues between the Sony and the iPad weren't there, I'd work on it further and probably get better at it and just kind of get used to it at a certain point. But for now, with this kind of the data transfer problem, I'm very happy to kind of leave it alone as it is. I'm glad I went through the experience of making a week's worth of videos on the iPad Pro. It definitely can be done, especially if you have other cameras. I believe Canon cameras, you can either directly connect the camera or you can take the SD card to a card reader and put it into your iPad Pro, and it should show up fine and you'll be able to import them directly. If that were the case for me, I think I'd probably continue doing this a little bit more. But for me, since I can't do that, I think the experiment kind of ends right here. If you have any questions about any specific part of that process, things that you'd like me to go into in more detail, let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys down there. Now, before I go, I want to talk to you guys about the charity runner for the week. And for those of you who are new, what I do is every week I spotlight a different runner who's raising money for a charity in preparation for a race. I donate $70 or more. Sometimes it has to be pounds. And I spotlight them at the end of every video. The charity runner for this week is Hayley Beck, who's going to be running the London Marathon in just a couple of days. And she's raising money for Childhood First, which is an organization in the UK that helps children with severe emotional and psychological difficulties. I've been very happy to donate £70 to Hayley's fundraising efforts. And if you'd like to learn more, I'll post links in the description. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, and I will see you guys tomorrow. What's going on?